In war, victory is calculated. It's strategy, numbers, firepower. But sometimes, the numbers don't add up. Sometimes, what happens on the battlefield doesn't make sense. This isn't a story of domination. This is a story of intervention. Moments when Israel, surrounded, outgunned, and outnumbered, should have lost, but didn't. 7 times. When something stopped the inevitable, some call it luck, others call it God. You decide. These are the 7 miracles that saved Israel in war. Miracle number 1, the wind that revealed death. Yom Kippur War 1973, Sinai Desert. It began like a suicide mission. Israeli troops were advancing through the desert near the Egyptian front when they realized they were in a minefield. A single misstep meant instant death. So they did the only thing they could: crawl forward on their bellies, probing every patch of sand with a knife. Then the wind changed. Not a breeze, not a gust, a storm. A violent, howling wind swept across the desert so suddenly, it flattened them to the ground. But what followed was unexplainable. As the storm raged, the sand began to lift, revealing a deadly truth. Hundreds of mines lay bare. Not a single soldier died. They crossed the field, unharmed. Natural phenomenon? Coincidence? Or something else? Miracle number 2. The ammunition that never fired. War of Independence, 1948, Gush Etzion. Israel had just declared independence, and the war came immediately. Arab armies attacked from every side, overwhelming, organized, and armed. In the hills of Gush Etzion, a small band of Jewish defenders ran out of ammunition. But they didn't surrender. Instead, they kept firing. Old rifles, blanks, empty clips, just to create the sound of resistance. The illusion worked. Believing they were outnumbered, the Arab Legion retreated. Gush Etzion stood for another day. A bluff or divine protection? Miracle number 3. The radio malfunction that saved Jerusalem. 6-Day War 1967, Jordanian front. Jerusalem was under threat. Jordanian artillery was in place. The coordinates were locked. One command, and West Jerusalem would be gone. But the command never came. Their radios, their only line of coordination, failed. Not jammed, not intercepted, just silent. The Jordanians delayed, confused. Minutes later, Israeli aircraft arrived, striking the position before a single shell was launched. No one on the Israeli side knew why the Jordanians stalled, and no one on the Jordanian side could explain why the radios died. But Jerusalem survived. Miracle number 4. The soldiers who didn't exist. Yom Kippur War, 1973, Golan Heights. It was October 6, 1973. Yom Kippur, the holiest day in Judaism. While Israel prayed, its enemies attacked. Egypt struck from the south. Syria attacked from the north. In the Golan Heights, the Syrian army came like a tidal wave. Over 1,400 tanks, thousands of troops, and in their way stood a handful of Israeli defenders. Fewer than 180 Israeli tanks guarded the northern frontier, spread thin and outnumbered more than 7 to 1. Among them, a young tank commander named Avigdor Kahalani. He knew they couldn't retreat. If the Syrians broke through, they'd reach the Galilee and the civilian heart of Israel. For days, Kahalani and his exhausted forces fought, tank after tank, shell after shell. But they were nearly out of ammunition. Fuel was low, bodies were dropping. And then the Syrians stopped, just short of victory. Entire tank columns halted. They had the numbers, the firepower, the momentum, but they refused to advance. Why? Israeli intelligence intercepted Syrian communications. The explanation? Syrian commanders reported being flanked by a massive Israeli armored division. They believed reinforcements had arrived. But the truth? There were no reinforcements, no tanks, no backup. The flanking forces they saw didn't exist. There was only dust, haze, and imagination, or something more, because the Syrian fear wasn't just tactical, it was psychological. In war, perception can become reality. That illusion bought Israel the time it needed to regroup, resupply, and push back. The Golan Heights held. The Galilee was saved. And an army was stopped by ghosts. Miracle number 5. The night that hit everything. Operation Entebbe, 1976, Uganda. In July 1976, an Air France flight from Tel Aviv to Paris was hijacked. The destination? Entebbe Airport, Uganda. The hijackers, backed by German and Palestinian militants, demanded the release of dozens of prisoners. Over 100 Jewish passengers were separated from the rest and held hostage. The world watched. Diplomacy stalled. And time was running out. But Israel made a decision the world didn't expect. Rescue by force. It was called Operation Thunderbolt, now known as Operation Entebbe. The plan? Fly over 2,500 miles in the dead of night, land undetected at a hostile African airport guarded by Ugandan soldiers and terrorists, and extract the hostages. Impossible on paper. There was one problem. The night of the mission was under a bright full moon. The risk of being spotted during the approach was enormous. Radar coverage, visual sight, moonlight on the aircraft's skin. Commanders considered delaying, but the hostages had only hours left. The order was given. The Israeli commandos boarded Hercules C-130 planes and took off, skimming just 100 feet above sea level to avoid radar. But then something changed. As the aircraft neared Uganda's airspace, the moon vanished. A thick, unforecasted cloud bank swept across the sky, cloaking the moonlight completely. The planes entered Entebbe under total darkness. Not a single radar pinged. Not a single guard saw them land. Within minutes, the operation began. The commandos stormed the airport terminal with surgical precision. In just 90 minutes, 102 hostages were rescued. One Israeli soldier was killed. Lt. Col. Yonatan Netanyahu, the brother of Israel's future prime minister. But the mission succeeded. The hostages were brought home. And that cloud, it wasn't mentioned in any weather report. Military logs later referred to it only as unexpected atmospheric interference. But for those who were there, the soldiers who landed, and the hostages who survived, it was something more. A miracle in the sky. A cloak of divine cover, just when it was needed most. Miracle number 6. The wall that wouldn't fall. Gaza War 2014. Tel Aviv, July 2014. Hamas and Israel were locked in one of the most intense standoffs in years. Over 4,000 rockets were launched toward Israeli territory, from Gaza to Haifa. Israel's defense relied on the Iron Dome, a high-tech system designed to track, intercept, and destroy incoming rockets in midair. And for the most part, it worked. Missile after missile was shot down. Sirens wailed. Civilians ran for shelter. But on one day, one rocket slipped through. It wasn't intercepted. No alarm went off. The Iron Dome didn't respond. The rocket was headed straight toward a bustling outdoor market in Tel Aviv, packed with shoppers, children, street vendors. If it landed, it would have killed dozens, maybe more. And then something impossible happened. As the rocket flew over the city, it suddenly veered off course. In the clear blue sky, with no mechanical malfunction, no signal interference, it twisted. A sharp wind, sudden and forceful, swept in from the coast and pushed the missile off trajectory. It missed the market entirely. It crashed into an empty construction site. No one was hurt, not even a scratch. There was no Iron Dome launch recorded, no radar lock, no radio disruption. Just wind. Israeli military officials called it a highly unusual atmospheric anomaly. But one commander said it plainly. This wasn't military science anymore. This was something higher. In a war ruled by calculations and code, it was nature or something beyond it that saved the city. The invisible wall had held. Miracle number 7. The Syrian bomb that didn't explode. Israel-Syria border, 2015. Kiryat Shmona. It was a quiet afternoon in Kiryat Shmona, a small town in northern Israel, just miles from the Syrian border. Families were at home. Children were playing in the yard. Life felt normal, but on this border, normal can change in a second. That day, it did. From deep inside Syrian territory, during a skirmish near the Golan Heights, a missile was fired. Not a warning shot, not a misfire. A fully armed warhead launched toward Israel's civilian north. It tore through the sky and crossed into Israeli airspace. No Iron Dome caught it. No siren sounded. No evacuation was ordered. Then it struck. Direct impact. The missile slammed into the roof of a family's home. A mother, a father, and their 3 children were inside. The building shook violently. Dust and debris filled the air. Screams echoed from inside. But then, silence. No fire. No explosion. Just a hole. And disbelief. Emergency units arrived. Bomb squads were called in. What they found stunned them. The warhead was fully intact. Live, armed, operational. It should have detonated on impact. It didn't. There was no reason. No technical malfunction. Israeli engineers later described it as a complete mystery. But to the family inside, it was something else. A miracle. The house stood. The roof was torn, but every life inside was untouched. One of the children would later say, "We heard it land. We thought we were dead, but we walked out alive." That's not luck. In the chaos of border wars, this was one moment when destruction arrived, but refused to do its job. These are not stories of invincibility. They are stories of intervention in moments when logic, math, and physics had already failed. In war, the strongest doesn't always win. And in these 7 moments, something changed the outcome. What do you call that? Fate? Coincidence? The hand of God? Tell us in the comments. What do you believe? And remember, history isn't just written by the victors. Sometimes, it's rewritten by forces we don't see. This is the Chronist.